This is the Climate Bugle, a climate talk show, and I'm your host, Nirada Poduwal. I've worked in climate change and sustainability for 15 years now, from the Singapore government to Wall Street. Here, I'll be chatting with my peers to show you how climate-related work is relevant to your everyday lives and your communities. Welcome to the inaugural episode of the Climate Bugle. Joining me today is Eric Planey, CEO of SolaBlock, a construction tech company. Hi, Eric. How are you doing today?
Oh, well, thank you for having me, Nirad. It's just great to be here. So really appreciate it. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing great too. I'm thinking let's jump right in, shall we?
That would be great. I would love it.
Okay. Let's start with, could you tell us more about what you do?
Sure. So my background is actually in banking and economic development. So I was a 20-year banker on Wall Street, did some economic development in my hometown in Ohio, and currently I'm CEO of a construction technology firm based in Western Massachusetts and capital region of New York called SolaBlock. I really have enjoyed this experience thus far because it's tested a lot of my background in economic development, in project finance banking, corporate banking, et cetera. And also dabbling a little bit in ESG. I think all parts of this are very interested for the climate ecosystem, so I'd like to be involved as much as I can.
Thank you so much. That's super helpful, Eric. And I was wondering if you could elaborate for our viewers today. What aspects of your work would you say impact the general public the most, and how?
Sure. So for my day job currently at SolaBlock, we make a solar embedded concrete wall system that we call PVP. So the trend in construction technology right now is to build a building not using block like we have in the past, but using these precast wall systems that are made in a factory. It saves labor, saves time, it's more efficient and a little bit more economical. And so about a year or so ago, our company pivoted that we make solar embedded precast systems. So we're working with a great upstate New York manufacturer to design products that will embed the solar right into a wall, and then we build commercial buildings. So we're part of, your question about the general public. We're making a product that's going to help commercial buildings become net zero buildings. So their carbon impact is going to be as low as possible. We feel that obviously benefits the occupants of the building owners, but also just climate in general. And anything we can do to help the decarbonization of our planet is going to help the quality of life for people around the world.
Amazing. And, I'm already on board, but for our viewers for whom our planet per se may not be as much of a priority, could you speak a little bit to how these net zero or green buildings impact property prices today, or anything along the lines of, say, green leases, rents, or, utility bills, for instance?
Sure. I mean, I think it's there's a lot to unpack in that question. If you look at where we currently operate in Massachusetts and New York, we have the blessing of being, involved in the two of the greenest states in terms of green building mandates in construction. Several years ago, the governor of Massachusetts came out and said there's going to be 10 cities in Massachusetts as pilots that have to build net zero buildings and will not use fossil fuels at all for powering the building, whether it's heat or other sources of power. New York has very similar mandates. And so, in the short run, this is a little bit of a disruption, but you can already see like a lot of buildings and multifamily buildings and even residential switching their winter heating from using gas or coal-fired or propane to using electric heat pumps. And electric heat pumps have become much more advanced over the last 10 years. But those buildings, of course, are going to require, if you really want to make it green, that electric source of heating has to have electric source of power. And so, of course, community solar farms and solar farms throughout the region are going to assist in that. Going with offshore wind, like is hopefully going to happen more in Massachusetts and New York, is a big part of that. But sourcing the power at the building is very, very important. A lot of people don't understand that rooftop systems for commercial buildings are fantastic. But now that wintertime is using more and more electric heat, in the wintertime, your rooftop power from solar drops considerably because the sun actually stays lower to the horizon. So if you have a vertical wall south facing, east and west facing, you're going to complement your rooftop system. So in the winter months, our vertical walls are actually picking up the power that's dropping off on the rooftop. So that's incredibly important for us. So in in the medium and long term, what's going to happen is that's going to help property owners have lower electric bills because they're going to be sourcing power using renewable sources that they've built. Our product is meant to have a payback period very similar to commercial solar, which is under 7 years. And we're looking forward to that. And the general public will again benefit by, over the long run, having cheaper, cleaner sources of electricity.
I see what you're saying, and this is actually super interesting. The climate transition has many, I would say, moving pieces and innovations that feed into it. And in simple terms, by reducing energy demand on the grid during peak hours, you're reducing the need to expand capacity and grid upgrades related to that, and again, maximizing efficiency. So this translates to cost savings on your utility bill in simple terms. Would you agree, Eric?
Absolutely. And again, this is a long run play, and that's how I look at it. So obviously there's a little bit of disruption right now in terms of how people are being billed and what the impacts are. But for example, I've had community solar for quite some time, and that's overall has reduced probably my electricity bill 20 to 30% over the course of 12 months. So it's quite effective, and I highly recommend it.
That's insane. And that's just, I think that's something that I'm really passionate to always find out more about from my peers who work in the climate space, just in terms of whether, even if you keep aside the whole end goal of decarbonizing the planet, how is the work you're doing actually, having an impact on any regular person out there, leading their regular life, going to work, coming back home, putting food on the table, feeding their family, taking care of their kids. And I think you made it very clear, I believe, just from at least the building sector perspective, what's actually happening and the kind of, I think what your company is doing is a great example of the type of innovations that we're seeing. Everybody knows about solar, but I don't think a lot of people know about the different nuances or the different applications of the technology itself. So thank you, and that's super helpful. And I was wondering, what if you were to talk about the biggest challenge that you face or see in your line of work, just a broad, open-ended kind of what would you say is the biggest challenge?
Sure. I think there's a couple. First off, relative to our company, there was a misconception out there about vertical solar because 10 years ago, our category called building integrated PV, there was a negative reputation because in general, over the course of 12 months, you put out 20 to 30% less electricity versus the rooftop system. So when solar panels were expensive, $2 a watt, it didn't get down to $1 a watt until 2015, 2016. Nobody wanted to have a solar panel that's not getting as optimal generation as possible. Because solar is so cheap right now that even vertical solar with that overall 12-month difference in output is still within the money. It still can generate a positive ROI. But now, as I mentioned, over the last several years, because buildings are greening and using different sources of green power, they're using more, electric heating and using more electricity during the winter months, having that vertical solar to complement rooftop is incredibly important. So not only is the ROI factor now in the money for BIPV, but the application is absolutely essential. I just read an article a couple of weeks ago that in Australia, they're talking about using more and more vertical solar on east and west facing walls because that actually helps you on an intraday basis gather that power in the morning time and the evening, right when peak electricity use is being used on the grid. Homes and businesses are kind of firing up in the morning and they're closing down in the afternoon with that overlap. So, having vertical walls on three sides is actually not only helping you over the course of 12 months, but it's also helping you on an intraday basis. So the size requirement of your battery could be smaller because you're generating power at peak periods. For me, it's just science and it's fantastic.
And what's it been like sort of interacting with the investor community with this product?
It's been a slog, quite honestly. When I started this job in the fall of 2021, VC markets were still, quite robust. But by the time we got our UL certification, which is essential in the United States to sell our product, the VC markets really took a downturn, and particularly climate. I don't think they've come back as fully as we would like. I think this is going to be a year of kind of sorting that all out. I think a lot of funds, but the feeling is quite positive right now. And I think that's because there feels like there's just a lot of more fundraising activity. So funds that raised their first and second and deployed them may have some monetizations and may be able to sell some assets, move on and then raise that third fund. And we're starting to see some feeling about that right now. So when we relaunched our company in late 2024, the VC market has been a little bit more receptive to it, I think, because now their house is in order, and also our product itself and our business model is a little bit more conducive to what climate tech VC likes to see. We're also very fortunate that we really operate in a subsector of climate tech called construction tech. And construction tech is really filled with great people who have a background in building and construction and building materials. So they understand our product and the nuances of our product a little bit more than somebody who's just kind of a generalist in climate tech. So that definitely works to our advantage as well.
That's actually great to hear. And Eric, I wish you all the best with the company. And I'm wondering, in terms of final thoughts, what are some of the ways that, well, first off, what is a key thing that you would like to communicate with the general public about your work? And what are some ways for potentially maybe the public to get involved, whether it's in terms of your the local policies that get implemented, or any other parting thoughts?
You know, I'd probably flip that a little bit. I actually think that we in the climate community need to do a better job of explaining to people why they will benefit in so many ways from having a robust climate tech development scene take place. For example, I saw a statistic from Forbes magazine. 313,000 jobs have been created from climate technology in the US in, I think, the last 10 years. Wow. And another statistic generated by the Rhodium Group and MIT, if you look at the top 10 states that have increased their manufacturing GDP as a percentage of total GDP due to climate tech manufacturing coming into their state, all 10 states voted red in 2024. And so I don't think we're doing a good enough job explaining how we're really benefiting not just the climate, and our decarbonization and saving our planet, but how we're actually putting new high-paying jobs on the table. The work that, has been done thus far in onshoring manufacturing related to climate has been quite good. And so I think we should actually do a better job of educating the public. And this way, the public can make more informed decisions themselves. And that's when I think we really have a great convergence.
That's an excellent point, Eric, and well taken. And it is indeed one of the defining drivers of why I have chosen to do this channel / podcast. So thank you again, Eric, so much for your time. And hopefully we'll have you back on as a repeat visitor. But thank you again for being part of this inaugural batch of people that I'm chatting with.
I'm so happy, and congratulations to you for taking this step to get the word out. This is exactly what we need right now. So well done. And thank you for having me today.
Yeah, thanks, Eric.
And that was today's episode. Please note that all views and opinions expressed here are personal and individual and do not reflect the views and opinions of any employer or organization.